now we come to the last opera by Richard Wagner, Parsifal. He knew rather early that this will be his last opera, so a kind of testament or so. And it is really, it takes quite special place among his all other works, his output. For the first, it is reflected as early as in its title. Namely, this title is Bühnen Weihfestspiel. Here's one very early piano arrangement done by Carl Klindworth, who was a British pianist who became, in his young years, a Wagnerian, and who, by the way, brought to Bayreuth also his adopted daughter Winifred, which became then the spouse of the Siegfried, son of Richard Wagner. And as you hear, this is the dedication title Parsifal. So I want to show it, if you can see it. So notice it is Bühnen Weihfestspiel. Now this, what does this Weih mean at all? Weih is some kind of ceremony or ceremonial or sacred almost, something like that. But Wagner didn't want to have anything like oratorio or passion, but rather Weih referred to certain enthusiasm and certain state of mind in which you should produce the whole thing and receive it. So that Parsifal is very long opera. It can take 6 hours, and I would advise that if you go to Parsifal, you don't do anything else in the same day. You have to only prepare yourself and be receptive, because it has something very special to tell you. For me personally, it was my first opera I saw. I was 12 years old in Helsinki, young boy. I went with my classmates to National Opera on Good Friday, which had this tradition to have Parsifal. And then later I've seen many versions which have been all impressive. I saw it then in student time in Paris Grand Opera by August Everding, mise en scène, and conducted by Horst Stein. Very impressive, especially the Wanderungsszenen, the transformation scene when the Grail Castle or the forest trees become the pillars of the Grail ceremonial hall. Very impressive, audience applauded, and also the whole seduction scene in the second act was very impressive. So then I saw it. It was in Finland, in Tampere, in 1990 by Leif Segerstam, Claude Naville, and filmmaker Pirjo Honkasalo, who then put there some film scenes from the then actual war, Gulf War, and to make it, so to say, modern. In Bayreuth, I saw it 1993, staged by Wolfgang Wagner. It was one of his and then Placido Domingo was singing. By the way, it is not excluded that Italian singers, bel canto singers, could not sing Wagner. Maria Callas has recorded Parsifal in Kundry, and that is quite excellent, I must say. Very impressive. The only thing is that on stage, often Italian tenors forget that you have to be part of the drama. You must sing to the other. You must not sing to the audience numbers. No, you are part of the drama. Then we have had in Savonlinna, Finland, the Mariinsky Theatre with Valeri Gergiev, also very right atmosphere, I would say, and then I've seen in Paris Bastille and many others. Well, some say that you can understand Parsifal only if you have heard all the other operas by Richard Wagner. And there is half truth there, because many of its protagonists are just make references to other figures, like from Tannhäuser to Lohengrin and to even to the Nibelungen. So it is very much true. But also I would say that the ideal is that you are just 12 years old. You don't need to understand anything of the rather complex philosophical ideas which Wagner linked. No, that is not necessary. It is just an artwork, and it makes its impact on your mind without any special previous knowledge. Now we know the sources. It's based on the stories by Parsifal, one of the Grail Knights, or Parsifal, the epos by Wolfram von Eschenbach, which we have. I show you only. We have here the Finnish translation, so you see it's very thick book, Parsifal. And if you read, you notice that this Parsifal is completely different from what Wagner did, because Eschenbach's Parsifal is like an action story. There are all time something happens. There are fights, and there are discoveries, there are returns, and there are all kinds of such things. So the whole character is very different from. The other source was the Chrétien de Troyes, another poem writer of the same age. Anyway, this epos had to be changed into tragedy and opera, and it means that the unnecessary action had to be taken out. And now on the idea level, I would say that there is this Buddhist ideology behind, coming from Schopenhauer, Arthur Schopenhauer, whom Wagner studied and greatly admired. By the way, Schopenhauer also knew Wagner, and he once sent a message to Wagner that ich admiriere sehr seine Oper, aber ist kein Musiker. So I admire greatly Wagner, but he is not any musician, said Schopenhauer. But this was very amusing for Wagner, especially this term admiriere. It was very funny in German language. But anyway, this Buddhist idea of the pity or compassion, which is the highest virtue in the whole Wagnerian universe, almost in all his operas, the compassion is certainly coming from Buddha. And as I've told already, Wagner even planned a Buddhist opera, the Sieger, the winners, which had the love story of Buddha's most favorite student, pupil, and a love story with a girl, and which he planned to compose, but which was never realized. However, I would say that this Buddhist idea is only behind, and so we cannot put it back on stage. We had in Helsinki the Parsifal by German Harry Kupfer, who took quite seriously this idea of the Buddhist issue, and so that the whole stage is like a Buddhist way in which people were just going towards their end, and their people, and many were dressed like Buddhist gowns, and so. But if Wagner had wanted that, he would have put it absolutely in the stage directions, but he didn't want it. It was only some kind of idea behind the whole and the compassion. But then, of course, the Parsifal is quite special. It's very the sacred is perhaps not the right term, but it is dealing with topics which is very, very serious and very close to the religious issues, indeed. And after all, it's amazing that amidst that period of materialism and the victory of industrialization, in which the new technology arrived, could emerge such work like Parsifal, which was like a negation of all these issues. There are many other philosophies of Wagner. I will, in next lecture in Wagnerism, get back to these, but let's now forget them and then go to the opera itself. Now, what happens there? In fact, there doesn't happen almost anything, because everything has already happened before the opera starts. All has happened already, and what has been done by the protagonists is hanging like a very heavy fate upon them. So there is this very fateful atmosphere, and what happens on stage is only a very, very long profound commentary on what happened once. Parsifal, he's a knight, but he doesn't do almost anything in the opera. He only grows internally. There is an inner growth process. I wouldn't say education, but his mind becomes more mature. Where he starts like a young Siegfried, young man grown outside society without any contacts, making stupid things unreflected, and then young man to whom the Grail ritual is shown, but without understanding anything, and then he's thrown away from the Grail castle. But then the return as a quite serious mission in his mind, namely to save the Grail Knights from the disaster which is coming from various reasons. And then at the end he takes the role in German of Erlöser. He's Erlöser, he is a redemptor, who but he actually redempts others like Kundry, the main female role, and also all the Grail Knights. And he gives them reconciliation by just taking the Graal ritual. No, Graal, I said, what is Graal? Graal is a vase to which when Christ was crucified, then at the end the Roman soldier pushed the spear his side, and then the blood came out, and the blood was gathered in the vase by Joseph from Arimathea, and it was preserved there. Then in centuries no one knew where this Grail was, but there was absolute certainty that it existed somewhere. And so the Grail Knights are sent by King Arthur for a constant search for Grail. Grail which will be just have the power, healing power, and give them strength and everything what is important. So that's the situation. So Grail is, or Graal is just object, value object, which is searched for and which should be restored so that the old regime would flourish and mankind and Grey Knights would be happy again. Now in the original story of Aesop there are many adventures, and Parsifal grows in forest. His mother has educated him totally outside of the other knights, being scared that he might be killed by these weapons and so. But then one day Parsifal he sees other knights and is just fascinated and joins them and comes to an island. There is a fisherman who says that you must go to the castle and you say the keyword fisher, then you are allowed to get in. He gets in, and inside there are the knights who had their mysterious rite around the Grail. But then he leaves again the castle, and the rest is portrays the fight with another fallen knight. I remember his name, but of course in opera he is Klingsor. And then meeting the woman who is Kundry in opera but has another name in the story. And at the end Parsifal returns and becomes the king after Amfortas, who should be the king but who is unable to give the Graal. And the reason for this is that Amfortas is son of Titurel, who was the king. And then in one fight with this evil knight, who is a kind of a devilish, demoniac figure, this spear of the Roman soldier, which is a sacred thing, is taken in the possession of Klingsor. And so now, but in this fight, this spear makes Amfortas wounded. He has a wound which never heals. So it's always a bloody wound. And so Amfortas is ill, sick in the opera, and he's only carried by other knights to get some remedy. So that is the initial situation when the opera starts, and then the whole story is about first how Parsifal how would I say, there is one important role is Gurnemans, who is an older knight who is a kind of father figure there who tells all these stories. So all these background stories, what happened, are told by Gurnemans, and all the people they have their earlier life. Like Gundri is the only woman in this opera, and he is the most enigmatic and exciting woman figure character in all Wagner's operas. Gundri is living eternally, thousands of years. She is always reborn, like in Buddhist mythology. And the reason is that she has once seen Christ in Golgotha, and then she has laughed at that. So as a punishment, she is always wandering in the world, and she tries to seduce men. And immediately when she is successful, then the fate is repeated again. So that is her story. And that is told by well, it is revealed, in fact, only later in the second act by her own story, when Gundri tries to seduce Parsifal. Anyway, Gurnemans tells in the beginning how the angels once brought the grail from the heaven to the knights, and what has happened, and then suddenly one strange woman figure rides, and she is Gundri. She's bringing the balsam from Arabia, which should be a remedy for Amfortas' wound. So it's given to Amfortas, and who has in the meantime been brought to the stage, and then Amfortas goes away, and maybe it is helpful. But then happens, moreover, suddenly the knights note that one swan has been hit by a pile of arrow by some unknown hunter in forest, and that is an unbelievable crime in the Grail forest, in which all the animals are sacred. So it's absolutely no animal could be killed there. And then comes the guilty, namely young man, who says that it was revealed that it was him. And then he is accused that look, they show the dead swan. Don't you feel any compassion for this poor swan, which was innocently only flying there in the air, searching for its bride? And then suddenly Parsifal feels, he's Parsifal, young man feels some kind of remorse, and he breaks his arrow. Then he meets Gundri, which is rather savage person also. And Gundri says that ich helfe nie. I never help anyone when he has just given to Amfortas the potion, balsam, and then she tells to Parsifal who he is and how his mother died. Then Parsifal attacks Gundri, angry, but then Gurnemans intervenes and again violence. Stop now, young man. And then it ends the scene, and they move to castle. Gurnemans takes Parsifal, and it's a time that they see the ritual. So we have the forest is transformed into temple of grey knights, which come there by a march with there are Parsifal bells there, very famous. Which is a kind of leitmotif of these bells. They are real bells which have been constructed especially for Wanfried, for Bayreuth, excuse me. Yes, and then Amfortas is brought to the temple, and he should now give the Graal, the Holy Communion, to the knights, but he cannot, because he is wounded and he is sinful. He feels that he is sinful. He has fallen under seduction of Gundri, this woman. But then at the end, Titurel, who is only the voice, he is living already in his coffin. He is close to pass away. He gives the Graal, and they get the communion, And then they are refreshed, and the music changes into a very brave march in which they swear the brotherhood again. And then it is over, and remains only Parsifal, who has been looking all the time in the side, and Gunnemans. And then Gunnemans notices, oh, Parsifal did not understand anything, go away. He throws away Parsifal. And so it ends there. Then there is an interval during which audience does not applaud. That is very old tradition from Bayreuth, because what we just saw on stage was so serious, religious. This tradition is no longer, unfortunately, followed. It was 1962, still in Helsinki, when I saw it. There was no applaud, but nowadays, I think, even Bayreuth, they are applauding. And then comes the second act, the Castle of King, but maybe best I must pick some music, because otherwise it's boring. I'm only talking here. So prelude already, the very beginning gives almost everything, this main theme. It's called Abendmahl motif, the motif of the Holy Communion. And it is totally syncopated, by the way. Comes again, very long pause, and then twice repeated this motif, and there are long fermata pauses. And what characterizes the whole Parsifal is the extremely slow movement. And the slow movement is not due to the especially long, slow tempo, but it is just that all the musical events take their time and place. So they are like epigrams, so that they are just given one after the other without any bridges or any developments. Then comes the motif. The grain motif. And by the way, that is the only motif which has church music originally. It is so-called Dresden Alleluia. That is the only one which Wagner took directly from some living tradition. And then comes the kind of symphonic development already in the bass. We have here a very alto violins and very soft, very airy sonority. But then comes the brass. So the music goes like this. Prelude is not very long, but it gives the basic atmosphere, which is very reflective, meditative. And then starts the third act with its dramatic. We might see just the Grail Knight. So we have this march motif. The knights come there, and second act is totally different again by its sonority and its atmosphere. Now it is Klingsor's Zauberschloss, Klingsor's magic castle. This music is Arabian music. It is very chromatic and it's a kind of Orientalism, we could say, in quotation marks. By the way, there is the original castle is in Portugal. I think it's close to Sintra. I've seen it. So there are real places of these grey knights. But anyway, this Klingsor is a forelock knight who is now in possession of this holy spear, and he uses Kundry as his tool or means to seduce other knights and then make them fall and perish. We have the music is very heftig, doch nicht überall. It is in B minor now, so it's very far away from the A flat major, typical is that the B minor harmony changes G minor, so there's the third relationship which gives this very typical effect which the later Hollywood horror movies use very. And so we have the Klingsor is there. Very chromatic and austere indeed, and then he calls here Kundry, come here. Kundry is now in her other role as a kind of seducer, and here the music becomes almost atonal because all sense feeling of the tonality is lost because the music can move almost in whatsoever direction. Let's look only about this dialogue between Klingsor and Kundry. Here we have this very screaming of and this very sudden Brökelarbeters down. So then comes Kundry answers with Rau und abgebrochen because she had been waking from his sleep. We would expect this, but we can't. But instead we got F sharp minor, tiefe Nacht, deep night, you see. We would expect A major, but instead we get E flat minor, Wahnsinn, madness, Wut. This called floating harmony. So there are no longer a fixed tonic dominant relationship, but it is all broken. So, and then what continues, and the Parsifal appears to the castle, and there are the Blumenmädchen, the flower girls, which is the choir where they are just helping in this seduction of these knights. And their motif, by the way, is the first one Wagner wrote for this. Parsifal is, of course, quite enchanted by this, but then comes one voice, penetrates through the other voice. It is the Parsifal. Someone is calling him, and it is Kundry, who is then there lying in a bed in the midst of this flower garden, and Kundry calls Parsifal, and then starts this very long seduction scene, one of the longest ones certainly. We have Kundry appears now quite different. She is now very dressed in a different way, and not at all like a savage woman running through the air by horse, but now she has another role, and she almost succeeds in this seduction, and she uses all psychological means to win Parsifal's mind. And for instance, she knows his life story, and she reveals to Parsifal his origins, which Parsifal now learns, and she uses all these just to get. But then, just when they kiss each other, then this kiss is awakening Parsifal, who suddenly remembers the wound of Amfortas, and he goes. So he suddenly he throws away Kundry, and then Amfortas he's singing. I must be redemptor to Amfortas. But then Kundry starts again, and she tells about her own story, which was why she is wandering all the time in the world, quite hopelessly. And he tells that Parsifal, if you are really the redemptor, please would you start with me, and would you just now first, as your first act of Erlösung, try me and we. No, nothing comes out of that, but that relationship. But then, because this kiss is, so to say, awakening Parsifal's mind in the Buddhist sense to notice that the evil of the human desire altogether and refuse, make a total negation. Then at the end, Kundry gets furious and she calls Klingsor to help, and Klingsor appears, and Klingsor throws the spear towards Parsifal, but Parsifal makes with his sword a sign of cross in the air, and this cross causes that the whole Klingsor's castle collapses in ruins. So it just disappears, vanishes. This Oriental demoniac word which was there. And then Parsifal tells to Kundry, you know where you will find me later. And then that is the second act. Very Pierre Boulez, by the way, who has also recorded this and conducted in Bible, said that most often romantic composers were much more successful in portraying these sinful words than the holy sacred words, but that is up to our taste to like in music. So he appeared this music. Then comes the last act in which we are. That's the Good Friday. We are in the Easter time, Good Friday. There is again Grail forest. Gurnemans has grown very old. He's very old now, and he's walking there. And then Gurnemans hears some woman complaining or weeping somewhere, and he finds in the bush it's Kundry. And Kundry is there, and Gurnemans tries to warm up her hands and bring her back to the life. And then some unknown knight approaches in dark dress, and it's Parsifal with the spear. He has now got the spear from Klingsor, and he's bringing back the spear to the Grey Knights. And then starts, we are in Good Friday, it's springtime, it is green, and we have the famous Good Friday music, which is also often performed as a separate number. It is, I hope I could find one fragment of this music just now here. It is, yes, no, I can't, I just hit it, but it is pastoral music in pastoral style. And then during which the Parsifal baptizes Kundry, which washes by her hair Parsifal's feet. So here is a Bible element for Maria Magdalena, certainly taken in this plot. And then they all decide that they must go to the Graal Castle. Then it starts the last act. We are back in the Graal. No, by the way, here is. Good Friday music. Anyway, we are back in the castle, and knights are coming. Titurel has died, and they are bringing his corpse in a coffin, and they will now like to. It's very dramatic now. They are, and they want to have the Graal, enjoy the Graal, and they ask Amfortas to do it, but Amfortas is brought also, but Amfortas is absolutely refusing, and he's only telling about his fate, and is unable to make this task. And then come Parsifal, Gurnemans, and Kundry, they come, and Parsifal tells that I give you now the remedy, and he touches by the end of the spear the wound of Amfortas, and then Kundry falls down lifeless. And that seems to be tragical, but after all, if Kundry was doomed to live forever, that is in fact a good thing for her, that happens to her. And then Parsifal is ready to become the king of the knights, and he's ready to give them here the Parsifal motif. Motif of the angels coming from the heavens bringing the Graal. And then we come to the end, in which Parsifal takes the Graal vase and raises it up. It is looming the red, and then there is a bird comes from the sky and sinks down upon that. That is nowadays no longer shown, but it is music repeats the most important motifs. Sehr langsam und feierlich. And then comes Ritter and Gnaden writes the höchsten heiles Wunder, the highest wonder, miracle, Erlösung, dem Erlöser. So the problem, who brings the redemption to the Redemptor is the problem here. So if it is Parsifal, who is giving that to Parsifal then? Here we have the motif, I forgot this, the Rhinegold. That is one of the basic ideas, this the crazy fool who does Mitleid wissend, who through the compassion knowing the crazy fool is the idea. It is Parsifal, that belongs to this whole. music started, so the whole tonal structure is quite clear. And this is of course very impressive because it's very synestesiac music. We have it's very colorful, and the color is the main function of the orchestra at the end, truly in this scene. But musically speaking, it's much studied, and the main aspects are certainly this slow tempo. So there are extremely slow tempi, but and the general slowness of all the events, and then of course this diatonic chromatic, this conflict between these two worlds, which is very very well built here, but of course which end with this very strong affirmation of the diatonic world. So this was the last opera of Richard Wagner. To my mind, it is in the opera history. It's quite particular, maybe the greatest opera which has ever been written. Yes, which we could study by all means. We could use there anything like existential semiotics or whatsoever in order to understand its message. But the main thing, of course, is that it is an artwork which has its immediate impact upon our minds without any analysis or any theories whatsoever.